every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go take down the champ.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
Welcome to day 2 here in Blaine, Minnesota of the US Open. We're here to watch a game against Mud from Japan and Molly Brown from Denver. I'm David Price and I'm here with Betty Schneidel. How's it going?
Great, how about you, David?
Yeah, not bad at all. Let's get right down to it and talk about how these teams have got to the point where they are. Obviously, Molly Brown had a great day yesterday. Mud, a bit less so, but this is a very important game for this pool. So talk us through some of the results of yesterday's pool.
Yesterday's pool, so Molly Brown came up strong yesterday, winning all of their games. Mud only losing one to Traffic, which was probably kind of a surprise because that was the only win Traffic got so far. So Molly Brown currently top seed, and Mud second one in the pool.
Yeah, and we were watching that Molly Brown Brute Squad game. It's super exciting. What do you think? What do you think Molly Brown will have to come out today and do to sort of really stamp their mark on the rest of the pool?
So what Molly Brown did yesterday, they have a very strong and dynamic handling, trying to put their handlers in a good position to go for the hook, to go for the long throws. And I think since they have like a height difference, they should really work on that, trying to use their bodies to get in a good position, go for the long throws.
And we were just talking with the Japanese captain. Obviously, a slight language barrier, but it was still actually a good conversation about what they've kind of done to prepare themselves. What do you think they're going to struggle with, and how do you think they might combat those problems you talked about with height and maybe other mismatches?
Yeah. So what Matt is apparently going to try to do is to stop the long throws. So they have to work on their force and maybe have a deep cover, like behind the stack, try to avoid the hugs.
Yep, nice. So the game is shortly about to begin. Both teams just huddling up. This potentially may be a very important game for the rest of this pool, as in currently Molly Brown are top, Mud are second seeds in their pool. And later on we'll be seeing the Revolution, which is a team from Colombia, versus Showdown. And this pool is quite upside down in some ways with Brute Squad taking a number of losses. Talk us through that a little bit, Betty, and how you think things might play out today. And like, I mean, the results from yesterday really do turn this pool upside down slightly.
Yeah, they do. Like I didn't expect Brute Squad to actually get 2 losses in the first day. As you just mentioned, a really tight and exciting game against Molly Brown, with Molly Brown going for it. So Brute Squad definitely needs to step up today, getting some wins and go ahead. Matt obviously beat Showdown and had another great game against Revolution. So 2 nice wins, lost against Traffic. But for sure, this is going to be like an exciting game, and we'll see who comes up on the top of it.
Who, in terms of players, are you excited to see today?
So from the Molly Brown side, looking at the stats, there has been Lisa going currently their top sister, and Claire McKeever for the top score. So might want to see that connection. So looking forward to that.
Nice. And we sadly don't know too much about the Mud team.
No.
But I'm sure that we'll be seeing a lot of handler movement, particularly in the short spaces, as a very typical Japanese style is to keep the disc moving but striking into the break side, and using those sort of very small sort of triangle shapes to move the disc. Have you? I don't know. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, Betty was on the Eurostars tour, but she's also played for Austria for a number of years. I don't know if you've had a chance to ever play against Japan or any of the Japanese teams.
No, not at all. I haven't had any chance yet. So last year in London, we didn't have the chance to play the Japanese teams at all. So I'm actually looking forward to commentating them and see how the game's going.
Maybe a bit of scouting in there as well for following you.
Exactly. But yeah, as you just said, just expecting the typical Japanese game, shortcuts, short throws.
Nice. Well, games are almost ready to start. Mud will be pulling on defense. Molly Brown receiving on offense. We can also see on Molly Brown a couple moustaches on the teams. I think they're just having a bit of fun after their very exciting day yesterday. Games now on, and here we go. Mud pulling to Molly. Pull fielded by Applegate. Straight into Chastain. Chastain immediately taking on that deep shot that we talked about earlier. Lisa Pitt-Caithley tracking it down. 2-pass goal.
And
1-0.
And that's what we expected, like looking for the long throws, and apparently worked out. Started with a kind of side stack, opened up the space for the first cutter. Didn't use it though because Lisa went deep and first goal.
Yeah, and here we see in the replay, disc is already in the air, and Pitt-Caithley has miles and miles of room. She was almost jogging at the end there. I think her defender had given up. And that's 1-0 for Molly Brown. And I'm not so sure what the Japanese were going to try and stop there. Pitt-Caithley, a very rapid receiver. Whilst we've started, I should probably talk more about the ongoing coverage here. The rest of today will be 3 more rounds of Fulcrum coverage. But there is also the ESPN coverage. The men's final, women's final, and mixed final will be on ESPN. The mixed final being on ESPN 2 and the other 2 being on ESPN 3. If you want to tune into those are tomorrow from 1:30 up until 7 p.m. So you have a whole lot of Ultimate to be watching if you have ESPN tomorrow afternoon. Have you been? You came yesterday, right, Betty, to come watch the games. Have you enjoyed what you've seen so far?
Yes, I have enjoyed what I've seen so far. Watched some of my Eurostars players playing Uno yesterday, so I've had some of the Japanese style. And I'm looking forward what we're going to see on this field now.
So Mud now on offense. Get the disc to Takahara. And now Furuzawa. She goes around. Almost sails over, but well brought down there by Suzuki. Suzuki goes inside, and there's that break that you're going to see a lot of. Takahara down the line, but just a bit too far ahead, and a lot of pressure there from the Molly Brown in the end zone.
Nice defense of Molly Brown, actually forced Mud to use some curvy passes. Obviously today there's no wind, has played a big part yesterday.
But now Molly will come back out on offense looking for a break. Maggie Chen, she goes around. Now with KJ. Johnson across the field to Taggart. Taggart gives a little nod and goes inside. Finds McKeever. Straight back to Taggart. And there's a lot of options upfield for Molly if they can just keep this disc moving. Chen to Taggart. And there's that option. Continues to Lambert. Suddenly a bit static. And Mud come out with that block just on the inside there with Suzuki. Suzuki fakes that deep and continues on to the other side of the field. Now with Yamaguchi. Inside to Shimada. Shimada fakes. Hasn't got many options. But goes up and around for the goal in the front corner with 64, Yuko Suzuki.
Again, we saw, after the turn, we saw a nice pressure of the Molly Brown defense. Tried to shut down the options upfield. And finally, a curvy pass to the end zone for the tie, 1-1.
And here we see the replay of the D there from Suzuki. Also, there's the goal scorer. They're getting a bit of bookends from for Mud. What do you think was the reasoning behind Molly Brown's sort of slower offense and giving Mud the opportunity there to get the D?
Yeah, for me, it seemed like they couldn't create like the open space like they did in the first point. So it seemed like they had a hard time finding their connections, and also Mud was playing some kind of poachy D at point, so that's why they got the D back.
Yeah. And it seemed a bit slow and congested eventually. There were, I mean, when I said it during the play-by-play, there were some open options, but then suddenly everything tightened up and they kind of stopped cutting.
Yeah.
Maybe they just need to go back into their structures and really start opening space for each other. So that's a 1-1 now for Mud and Molly Brown. Mud pulling to Pesh. Pesh gets it to Becher. Becher currently unmarked. Well, Pesh is also unmarked. So has to go back and get it. Lisa Caithley comes under. She goes deep. Disc perfectly weighted into the path of 42. Lizzie Laurie. And that's a much easier goal there for Molly Brown. Now up 2-1.
So this time we could see Mud that actually was able to stop the pull play of Molly Brown. First 2 passes took a bit longer, but then again immediately they used their height going for the deep shot, and perfect goal on that one.
Yeah, it seems like the Molly Brown O-line is being very efficient currently. Here we see Lisa Caithley with that under and an immediate throw into space for Laurie to pick out. And Lisa Caithley so far living up to your hopes of being an important player, both with a goal and an assist. And there we see Joe Durst, the Molly Brown coach, sporting his brand new Eurostars t-shirt. You can see there to inspire women and girls around the world. A tenet that is shared by the Girls Ultimate Movement, who do, who run clinics held all year round across the United States. If you wish to follow them, please do. Search for GUM Girls Ultimate Movement or GUM Ultimate. There was an annual update last night, which you can catch up on the USA Ultimate Facebook site. But now back with the action. Mud swinging the disc and get it up to the brick mark. Now with Wakaya. Onto the inside with Furuzawa, and a good continuation to Yamaguchi. Again, running down the field now is Takaora, and she goes around. Oh, and that was a nice option. But the number 64 of Suzuki came in a bit too soon, and it just tapped out of her hand.
We saw some nice movement in the Mud offense right now. Really fast play, hardly any stall count. Great continuation, but unfortunate. Not till the end.
Yeah. Chen to Mikkel. To Schaffner. Schaffner having to pick up off her laces, but gets a nice continuation. Now with Devlin. Devlin. She goes around and runs out of field space, but a foul on the mark. Devlin getting the disc back in on 1. And a little bit of a poachy set here from Mud, but goes back. Schaffner coming under, really had to attack the disc, but she made sure. Takes the open Kirsten Johnson. Johnson resets to Mikkel. Mikkel fakes that deep shot to Schaffner, but takes a lovely across the field to Devlin. Devlin does take on a deep shot. There's a Mud player underneath it, and well defended. Elmore would really have to have made a big play to catch up to that disc, I feel.
And here we saw for the first time that actually Mud coverage was behind the long option. And again, it seemed like the Molly Brown D-line had a hard time setting up their offense. Couldn't convert the defense. Let's see if they can get it back one more time or if Mud goes all the way through to the score.
Yeah, there we're seeing the replay. Some nice respect between the players. Both making great plays on that disc. So now Yamaguchi picks up, gets it down the line to Furuzawa. Furuzawa going deep and onto the break side, but that's really floating, and Schaffner's had time to catch up, but not enough time. 33, Onohara making that grab. Finds Suzuki. Suzuki wants that inside, but goes around. Just in the reach of Takaura to Shimada. And they've gone back a bit now with some Molly Brown defense. Eventually unlocking some space, but Schaffner reads it, and they're off to the races. Almost turned over, but Devlin backs up. Slowed down through Schaffner, and back round to Mikkel, who continues. And some lovely play to get this disc all the way around the back. Devlin on the disc. She kicks another deep shot to Elmore. And again. The disc just floating too much, and Elmore can't hold on to it. We have had a bit of an equipment call on the field. And what do you think about that last possession there?
Well, Matt coming out with the hug, nice positioning on the catch, but then I think they didn't quite have the setup in the end zone, couldn't put it in immediately. And then a great defense from Molly Brown. And this time the D-line seemed to be setting up their offense well, but just couldn't use their height in the last throw.
And now Mudd will try it one more time to get this disc in the end zone. They've already got past half, and they keep getting to this point. A little push off there by Suzuki, but no Falcon called. Takaura goes down the line to Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi really wants to get that one in, but can't find the space. Gets it back, immediately continues, but travel called. In fact, even the Mud players were indicating that was a travel. So disc with Yamaguchi on the end zone line. Disc has been tapped in. She'll just want that inside flick, and there it is. Takaura running the offense in that point, but Mud really struggling to get the disc in the end zone in the last few yards of the field.
Exactly. So second time, really had some nice movement, getting close to the end zone, but then at the end keep struggling. Seems like they don't have a good setup in there. Some confusion, but finally made it through. Nice handler work. But again, lots of short passes, lots of shortcuts, just like we expected the Japanese play to be like.
And what I found interesting actually was that whenever they did try and take a deep shot or like a floaty across the field flick or whatever, like a longer, higher pass basically, it was always defended by Molly Brown. Like we saw Schaffner coming down with it, and a few others just being either thrown away, etc. So maybe it is in the favour of the Japanese to play in their typical style.
Yeah, I think so as well. They tried to mix a bit their style of playing, but Molly Brown being really well aware on defense, going for it. Got the D twice, just couldn't convert it. Now let's see what the O-line is going to do again. If it's going to be another long game, or if Mudd will actually be able to stop their throws now. Let's see what the D-line is coming up with.
And Mudd D-line pulling to Bacher. Bacher centres to Applegate.
Looks like we have a zone or Poach D out there right now.
Oh, and a lovely around shot just into the reach of Lisa Pitt-Caithley. She goes across the field. And a hammer, perfectly weighted. Liza Minor poached at the back of the end zone. And Molly Brown's offense doesn't seem to be struggling. Now it evens at 2-2.
Not at all. So Mudd came out with a kind of zone or Poach D, but Molly Brown just read the defense perfectly. Looked for the open space. So we had that backhand opening up the whole game, and then just a perfect continuation. Finishing off with the hammer.
Yeah.
Hammer to the end zone.
That was Lizzie Laurie with that hammer, taking on that poach, and that's what good teams will do. If they see someone open and poached, you really have to get the disc to them, because they can make a lot more gains that way, either from wherever they are, or by resetting and moving the disc to somewhere else.
So far, Molly Brown hasn't struggled with the O-line at all. Mud has had some difficulties getting their offense points through. Molly Brown just couldn't convert the defenses so far.
It does feel like, from what we've seen so far in these first 5 points, that Molly Brown's O-line has been a bit more efficient than Mud's.
Exactly. Especially the first point.
Yeah.
2-pass score.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredibly efficient. But even since then, I don't think their O-line has turned.
No, I don't think so either.
So the ball is probably in the Molly Brown's court to get the first break. But we'll see. You can always be surprised by a short field turnover or something similar to really spice games up. The disc now with Takaura to Suzuki. A lovely inside shot to Furuzawa. And typical Mud getting the disc all the way down the field, but a great interception there by Sally Lambert. Immediately picked up by Johnson. Gets a reset to 15, Taggart. She goes down the line to McKeever. Again on the end zone line. McKeever doesn't have many options, but does eventually reset to Taggart. Taggart goes around to Johnson. Johnson just finds that gap, and that's the break that we were talking about. Sally Lambert with the score, and Molly Brown now up 4-2.
Nice backhand fake here, and also the cutters kind of moved to the continuation side of the backhand, opening up the field for the sidearm flick. Score. First break, just like we expected it.
Yeah, and that throw there by Johnson was so close to being defended by Mud, but does find Lambert just on the front of the end zone. If you want to join in the online conversation, please do so by using the hashtag US Open Champs. Seen some great posts and reposts of the stream, and some lovely little photos of teams enjoying the sideline here. The weather yesterday was very similar to now, but much more windy, and it looks like we have hardly any wind out here this morning. It's very still, but still quite warm, even for, what's the time now? It's 10 to 9 here in Blaine. And, I mean, I've got a T-shirt on and I feel perfectly fine. So it's lovely weather to be playing Ultimate. Not too much sun in your eyes or anything like that. So almost perfect.
Perfect weather. And you could actually see that the players use this kind of weather. We've had quite a few bladey throws. We have had a hammer so far. So I guess they're enjoying it out there on the field as well.
Indeed. And Mud really enjoying it. Oh, a lovely late bid. But giving the disc back to Molly Brown, Chastain and Schaffner. Bit of 1-2, but finally gets it to Taggart. There's Chastain once more, controlling this team from behind. Resets to Schaffner, who gives it straight back. That's the Schaffner show, throw and go. Finds Vlach. Vlach goes out of the field. And I don't think that was a terrible option, but the execution maybe not its best. There was a Mud defender there. She would have to put it just a little bit further into the back corner.
Exactly. Schaffner giving her the option, more, I guess, more on the weak side, but execution just didn't go as well. But we could see Chastain and Schaffner just controlling the handling. That's what we expected.
Now Mud will have to work it up the whole length of the field now. Disc with Shimada. She takes on a deep shot, and that's very well placed. Able to have Wakaya leap onto it down the line. She goes inside to Onohara. Wants that lefty backhand, but has to go inside. Takaura. Not pivoting until now. And goes inside. But a pick has been called, I think, or a foul. Wakaya did well to be free. but they are discussing the play. And looks like it was all cordially discussed. The disc will come back on the end zone line with Takaura. And the disc is in. Takaura. And some great fakes, both on the force and upfield. Get the disc into Shimada. And Schaffner did look like she kind of hurt herself in that defensive attempt. But Mudd with a hold, now down 4-3.
Mudd with a nice offense after the turn. They got the disc back. Used the long throw. Here we can see it in the replay. Very well put long throw. Speedy receiver. And this time actually they stayed patient, looking for the end zone throw. Nice cutting, as you just said. Schaffner went for that fake. Might have hurt herself a bit, but I think she looks fine. Guess she will be back on the field soon.
Yeah, I think she'll be back. She's a bit of a tough cookie, Jessie Schaffner. We saw her playing yesterday, showing true grit on defense, especially against Revolution and against, to be fair, and against Brute Squad. Getting some very close to some blocks, and even in the last point, actually, she got the block for them to take the goal and the game. Now let's see if this efficient Molly Brown offense can continue its streak of no-turn offense. Applegate, apologies.
And again, Mudd coming out with a zone defense.
Laurie finds Ives.
So what we can see now is Mudd actually has the deep cover now.
Yep.
Tries to take the space in the middle of the field.
Applegate wants her receivers to come under. Finds Pitt Caithley. Who places that flick just out into space for Laurie. Laurie goes high and around to Applegate. Applegate has a deep shot, but doesn't like it. And the noise that Mudd is making is also a bit of a disruption, I'd say, for Molly Brown's offense. But they have made it to the brick mark now with Bacher. Bacher faking. Has an open shot with Pitt Caithley, who strikes down the field. Getting it back. Pitt Caithley. Across the field to Applegate. And there's that space for Lizzie Laurie. And at the end there, fantastic use of the dump and swing to find the space on the other side of the field that Mudd had clustered into on the left-hand side. Now up 5-3.
Again, another great offense from Molly Brown. Staying patient, using the fact that there's no wind today so they could play the nice wide swings. The Mudd zone really had to work on that one. But that was the first time, I guess, Molly Brown really had to use more than 5 or 6 throws to get their offense through. So maybe we'll see some more zone from Mudd, trying to stop this very efficient Molly Brown offense. And that's what I experienced as well with the Eurostars. We had a really hard time getting a defense, Molly Brown. They're just efficient, really, really clean out there.
And just a reminder that this Sunday, history will be made again for the sport of ultimate. From 7 p.m. Eastern Time, you can watch the mixed division final live on ESPN2. And if you want to watch the rest of this coverage, of course, it's all through the USU's Facebook, in a similar manner to the Eurostars tour, all through Facebook videos, which, of course, Betty was one of the many great players that we saw in action there. Now resting here at the US Open, as if you'd already had enough frisbee.
You can never have enough frisbee, right?
So now Molly Brown will look for this break, but Mudd working the disc well. Takaura finds Suzuki. Suzuki has 2 options under, but can't get to them. And there's some lovely little handler defense there. Almost dropped by Mud. Number 10, Furukawa, has a reset. And a nice continue to this near sideline with Shimada. Back to Takaura. And so far, Molly doing a good job of containing Mud. Until there's a nice bid by Suzuki. Worked it up to the brick mark. Good high release inside to Wakaya, sorry. Wakaya. Fakes. Goes inside, and a great snag there by Shimada. Really had to stretch out to get that, but maintains the offense and the score. Now at 5-4.
Great offense by Mud. It's actually the first offense where they didn't turn the disc. Stayed patient, had some nice upfield cutting work. Going all the way through.
But early on in that point, Molly Brown were doing a fantastic job of keeping Mud, in the back half there.
Yeah, I think with the straight up force, they really forced Mud to use the side of the field. Kind of seems like they can contain the short cutting of the handlers. After the straight up force, they really positioned themselves well.
But it's such a unique style that the Mud have, whereby they're always looking for those little tiny angles that you would argue American and maybe even European Ultimate doesn't necessarily utilize all the time. I think, well, from watching a lot of European Ultimate and playing in Europe, we are starting to do a lot more of that sort of same third hucking and very tight angles, but not to the extent of Japanese teams.
That's true. Very unique style. As you just said, I think Europeans and also the American Ultimate starting to copy a bit of it. But it's just not the way we were taught to be playing Ultimate, I guess.
No. But I guess it's great to see, and I guess having learned Ultimate on an island like Japan, they can also have their own style, and that's exactly what they've done. And it's great to watch, and great to have them here. Chastain breaks through their zone, though, and now again with Lisa Pitcaithley, within 3 passes, up 3/4 of the field. Pesh goes around, and that's the first turnover for the Molly Brown O-line. The lefty of Pesh thought Lisa Pitcaithley had gone a bit further, I think, but well defended by Mud, who put Lisa Pitcaithley off enough that she wouldn't cut into that space.
Molly Brown actually adapted to the offense really well, put the stack deep, so behind the handler defense line there was a lot of open space, and that's why they actually could advance upfield by 3 or 4 passes from the beginning on.
Furukawa there couldn't get that disc to a receiver, and he touched the hand, bid out, and straight away Chastain attacks back with Liza Minor, who's had a fantastic day yesterday. So that's the only turnover for this O-line so far, who are up 6-4.
Got back to defense, got their disc right at the end zone line, and Liza Minor being well aware of what's going to happen. Attacking the disc, easy score. But Mott forced them to the first turnover of this game. Although I guess it was just a bit overthrown. But what we can see now is that they actually start covering the deep shots better. So we have 2 defenders behind the offense of Molly Brown. And it seems like it's giving them a harder time, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that Ultimate is always played is a game of runs, and that's the same. You can also argue on defense, where a team will try something out and it doesn't quite work. And earlier on, I don't think Mud really posed a threat on defense, but they, as you say, they've adjusted slightly, and slowing down the Molly Brown deep shot is what they said they would try and focus on, and they've started to do that. So Molly Brown will just have to adjust and find a run of their own. If you're watching the other side of the other field, it's currently Scandal versus Uno, with Lindsay Cross and Emmy Fitzgerald on the mic there. Emmy Fitzgerald actually being able to speak conversational Japanese, so it's very useful for her to be covering Uno, and I think she's doing so twice today. as well as yesterday. So luckily for us, this is our only mud game, so we don't have to do any Japanese. But enjoying this game so far. Mud demonstrating some fantastic ultimate. And there we see an option that I would love to see again to Onahara. Crossfield flick over the stack, but finds the player. Now with Takaora. Mud have done really well to get the disc to this point with only a few passes. Yamaguchi on the disc, and there's that inside shot for the goal. Wakaya with the goal. And a very nice hold there by Mud, 5-6.
So Mud with this amazing side-on flick. Right now we can see the inside break for the score. But I think, as you just said, the flick crossing the field, it was even put up before the cut happened, so you can see that these girls know each other very well. Well read by the handler, going for the open space. So that was a really efficient Mud offense we saw right now.
Yeah.
Working it well, running it well.
And it must be hard to defend when these women are basically throwing their players free. I mean, if the offense isn't always like where it's meant to be and it's just before they're cutting, how will the defense be able to know what's going on?
Exactly. But that's what you want on a strong team. I mean, if you have the mixture between opening up the space by cutting and also opening up the space by throwing, then it's going to be impossible to defend.
So now Molly Brown will seek to ensure they can keep up their pretty much efficient, almost 100% efficient offense. But the pull has gone out, and Applegate will be able to bring it up the field to where it left the field, which is somewhere past halfway. And in all fairness, I have seen Japanese teams purposely pull out the side, but I think that was actually by accident.
Looks like Matt's setting up their zone defense again.
So Applegate starts on the halfway line. Takes the easy reset to Chastain, who swings immediately to Ives. Sorry, Minor. A lovely inside shot to 42. Laurie back to Applegate. Applegate fakes the hammer. Chastain is very free, so that's exactly where the disc goes. And a lovely bit of handler movement between Applegate and Chastain, and continue to beat Bacher. Bacher has Applegate. Applegate holding it in the scuba / flick grip, but finally gets one around to Bacher. A very good around throw to Chastain now in this front corner. Chastain across the field to Applegate, using her height. Oh, and almost a goal there with Bacher, but Chastain comes across the field. Chastain now on the other side of the field. Swings to Applegate. Some nice patience from Molly Brown, but also well contained by Mud. Chastain goes all the way around. And that's the goal with 42, Lizzie Laurie just towing the front of the end zone.
What a great handler movement here. I mean, Chastain went for almost every second disc. You could see her dynamic style of playing, really working up hard, finally going for the score to Lisa Laurie. Very patient, Molly Brown offense.
And what did you notice about the end zone defense there from Mud?
Mud was actually able to contain the end zone for quite a while. Although Molly Brown had some nice swings and movements, but still Mud kind of was expecting that, I guess.
And there we see Pitt Caithley, who's had one hell of a start to this game, demonstrating her power on offense. The first goal, second assist. And many hockey passes in there, you know, really demonstrating that she can throw it and she can catch it too.
Yeah, PK Flick kind of dominating the field on the first points. Being the long option and also going for the short passes.
This is the first year of the official US Open Club Championships, with both the youth and the international club championships going on at the same time. But back with the action here with Mud on offense. This with Yamaguchi. It looks like, again, that straight up force is being used by Molly. Oh, and Elmore almost bidding. Disc with 64. Suzuki. Suzuki wants to get the disc in the middle, but has to go down the line. And across field, that flick into the back corner. Incredible weighting and incredible shape to that disc. And that goal for Mud, not only efficient, but looked very pretty too. Only down by 1, 7-6.
Incredible end zone pass here. And again, it was kind of like the cross-field flick we saw the point before, putting up the disc before the cut actually happened.
Yeah, and here we see 64 Suzuki. She went down the line to Shimada, and she immediately throws that flick across the field to Onohara, who just knows that it's going into that space, and it's the break side of the field for Molly Brown. So it's very unlikely that there'll be a defender there.
Great use of the open space. It's not an easy throw, but if you're able to do that, then just like you said, DP, it's almost impossible to defend that shot. It was interesting on the Mud offense. They hardly had any movement on the cutter side until the handler finally got in a better position. Molly Brown contained that one with their straight-up force really well, but still, Mud seems to have worked out their offense really well now. Haven't turned the disc for 2 points, I think, 3 points, something like that.
I think, yeah, 2 points, I think. They had 1 turnover and their 5th point.
Yeah.
But a nice pull there by Mud, pinning Chastain in that corner, and a containing zone from Mud with no force until now. But yes, Chastain still hasn't got the disc out, and until then, where she immediately throws a turnover. So Mud.
Great defense from Mud on that one. Really no options for Molly Brown, and finally the turn. Let's see if Mud can get their break back.
So Suzuki on the disc, but some nice handler pressure from Molly. Finally unlocking that pressure, but rushing that shot was number 15, who isn't on our roster, sadly. Pesh gets here around to Cousins. She continues to Laurie. Laurie goes high and around. Towed in for the front of the end zone is Megan Ives. And that time, Molly Brown made sure they've now taken half at 8-6.
So after the turn, Mud didn't have enough time to set up their D, their zone D again. And you could see that the Molly Brown offense just ran through them, through the person defense of Mud again, using their height. Not a nice bit.
That's the half here of Mud versus Molly Brown. We'll be back shortly for the second half.
Every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go, take down the trail.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
Welcome back to the second half of Mud versus Molly Brown. Let's have a little talk about what happened in the first half, Betty.
First half, Molly Brown came up really strong. First offenses, very efficient, didn't turn the disc at all. Mud struggled a bit in the beginning. Molly was able to get a break. But then Mud adapted to it and really used the great conditions today. As we just said, no wind at all, just a slight breeze. And with their sidearm throws to the open space, managed to score some nice points.
And just during that half there, we saw both teams having little discussions between themselves. Mud making a nice little circle and having their captain just talking over the last few points. But Molly Brown, in a slightly different style, had a little tutorial, it appeared.
Yeah, they all lined up on the sideline and had Justine showing them how to defend the mud cuts, I guess.
Yeah, it was cool to see, and it was just nice to see those contrasting styles of halftime discussion. But now coming out on offense, Mud will be seeking to utilize the break side just like they were at the end of the first half and get back the break they lost. Already past half with Shimada. Shimada gets it down the line, just streaking Tarakura. Oh, and a great defensive block. That's Elmore, always wearing those sunglasses, but not shaded that time.
Not
Able
at
to get
all.
the block right on the end zone line.
What a bit from Elmore. Mud actually started out really well, opening up the space, advancing up the sideline, but then just didn't expect Elmore to go for that bit.
And off to the races, past half themselves, and here comes that deep shot. Elmore is underneath it. She reads it much better than the defender, and that's bookends for Elmore.
Elmore going for the bit and the score. Shimada wasn't aware of the disc, didn't know where it was at, so it was really easy for Elmore to go for that goal.
Yeah, she almost had to weave her way through the defenders.
Exactly.
But she read it much better. Got those bookends, and that's another break at the beginning of the half for Molly Brown, up 9.
We just saw a real fast point on that one.
Yeah, and here's that
bit again.
that bit again, and she just reads the play. I mean, it almost bobbles into the hands of Mud, but perfect read of the play, great athletic play from a fantastic female athlete. And as someone who's been touring now for the past 2 weeks, what part of the country have you enjoyed the most, Betty?
City-wise, I think I enjoyed Seattle the most. Just like the mixture of, being a big city, but still a lot of green in it. That's what I really like. I guess I would enjoy San Francisco, but by the time we got to San Francisco, I was just too tired to walk around the city at all.
Yeah, and then having to play a double header there didn't help either.
No, not at all. But it was actually it was nice to get to see all these cities.
Even for a
As
day
well.
or two.
Yeah. Even if we were there only for 36 hours.
Now Mud will really want to make sure they can get this hold at the beginning of this half. Currently down 2 breaks. Finds Yamaguchi. Good continuation. And there's that deep shot across the field to 33. Onahara tosses one in to Suzuki. And that shot is the one that Molly Brown needs to stop. But Mud hold 9-7.
Just like you said, again, used the break side really well with the side-on flick. And then I guess it was
An easy few fakes for that goal, yeah.
yeah. Lefty backhand for the score.
And also enjoying how the Mud team are celebrating. Even though they're behind, they're still keeping themselves high, and you can see them cheering as they come on to celebrate the goal.
Cheering and getting the team together in the huddle after each point, making sure that the energy stays up high. And they only need 2 breaks to get back in the game, which is going to be a hard task though, since Molly Brown has played some fantastic offense in this game so far.
And when you were playing Molly Brown, you were talking earlier about finding it hard to to find the disc or get blocks of them. What do you think Mud will have to do to do the same thing?
I think starting with the zone, I think actually that's their only option, since the difference in height is so big. So I think they're trying to use space defense, and here we see another zone from Mud. Slightly different one though.
Yeah, they may just have to keep mixing up their zone types.
Exactly.
Because otherwise Molly will just get used to the style of play that they have to take on. But so far only been troubled once by a zone, but they were still able to score it. Elmore with a beautiful across field break. Beecher throws a deep one. Has to be attacked to come under. Thrown across the field. And that's Megan Ives with the goal. Really wasn't troubled there by zone.
Chastain opening up the field with a beautiful cross-field pass. Continuation on the long throw. And then an easy score.
Yeah, and Coach Durst there really enjoyed that possession. Here we see Elmore faking that flick, but taking on that break. And that's basically what unlocked the zone for Molly Brown. From there onwards, it was just throw to open players, which Beecher did. Giving time to Megan Cousins, who went high. And she just takes a inside shot. Again, just throwing to open players, out in open space. Now up 10-7. There are 8 divisions here in both the adult and the youth divisions. With the ICC, it's the men, the mixed, and the women's division here. Well, of course, we're watching the women's division. And in the YCC, you have U20 boys, U20 girls, U20 mixed, and U17 boys and U17 girls, making up 126 teams overall and about 2,000 athletes. Almost as big as a World's Championships. Actually, might be about the same as the World's Championships.
Seems like it.
That we have, last year we had in London. And the fields here of a very similar standard. The soccer fields here, this national sports complex. I don't even know how many there are, but there are a hell of a lot of people here. Mud. Getting the disc to 21. Furuzawa goes down the line to Yamaguchi. She goes deep. Over the top, and she'll have to bid. Oh, but not quite close enough. And that was really unfortunate there for Mud. Wakaya just had to bid at the last minute. Mikkel really wasn't able to make a defensive play, but unfortunate for Mud.
Really unfortunate. They used the vertical stack really well. Had the open space close to the sideline. Just couldn't keep it up till the end.
It's a nice give and go between Schaffner and Johnson, but a travel has been called. And the travel has been called on Johnson. So the disc will go back to her. She has to wait for everyone to reposition since it was a throw before. Johnson taps it in. Doesn't take the same option, but does go inside. A nice layoff to Schaffner, playing a very typical dribbling style. Gets it to McKeever, who continues and goes a bit high and around, but will there be a bid from Vlach? No. And the retentive receiver of Mikkel was a bit too far under, and so Molly unable to capitalise on that turn. Mud Yamaguchi picks up and moves it disc forward. Now with Suzuki, continues to Shimada. And they're just taking open shots here, Mud. Until now, where they've had to break, and a bit of a stumble from Takaura, gives the disc back to Molly Brown. Brown to Vlach. Great continuation to keep the disc on the other side of the field with Pelletier. Pelletier to Mikkel, and Schaffner's heading deep, but takes it into Johnson. Mikkel very free, and there she is. This with Mikkel within the center circle. Mickle fakes. Finds one down the line with Devlin. And there we see a timeout from Molly Brown. That's a nice call from them. Just to reset their offense potentially and stop. Well, make sure they can get that turn.
Make sure to get that turn. Matt actually seems like they organized their offense really well. They have vertical stack, leaving the space open to one player. Really well organized, but then just slight miscommunication and unfortunately not the execution you want to have. Producing another turn and giving Molly Brown the option for another break.
Whilst the teams are in a timeout, I'll ask Betty a few little cheeky questions, just to make a bit of fun, really, I guess. We were both on the tour together, and I certainly enjoyed having a bit of fun with Betty. So I know she likes a bit of a joke. So if you were to be any Star Wars character, who would you be?
Yoda, of course.
Yoda.
Yes.
Nice. I think I'd be Jar Jar Binks, just so the
Jar
fans.
Jar Binks? I'd
Yeah,
be
because
Yoda.
then I could piss the fans off a little bit. They don't really like that very much.
No, I like his language and the green color.
Nice. Yeah. And you'd want to be the master, so you could like move frisbees with your mind, basically.
Exactly.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Then I wouldn't have to run as much, you know?
Yeah, true. Oh yeah, no one likes running around. Really.
No one.
All frisbee players hate running.
Yeah, actually, we hate running. We just love the disc so much.
But back out of the timeout, Devlin gets the disc around to Johnson. Devlin to Vlach. Across the field to Mickle. We're kind of back where we were just before the timeout, but Devlin back on the disc across to Schaffner. She has to readjust, but the disc floats enough and immediately throws to Elmore. Tracks it down, and that's a break for Molly Brown. The third of this game, now up 11-7.
Both Schaffner and Elmore reading the floaty disc really well.
And here we see Vlach taking her time, getting it back into the center. Mickle doing a great job of always being available, always letting people know that she's there for the disc. And Devlin also having a great point, hitting some great unders. It's a nice dump and swing basically from Molly. Doing the ultimate basics well and taking on open shots.
That's exactly what they're doing. Schaffner really quick on releasing that throw, making it easy to have the continuation for the score.
Yeah, she comes from an Oregon background where we've seen the likes of Dylan Freechild, who also has a I would say a very similar style. Like, gets the disc, immediately tries to offload it, and then is immediately moving as well. And I remember a certain highlight of Jessie's where she's playing for Oregon Fugue, and she gets the disc starting on one end zone line, and every other throw is to her, but she doesn't stop running. She's just like run, get a pivot, throw straight away, and it's like within stride, no traveling, but she's just bang, 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 bang all the way down the field till the eventual goal, which I think maybe our one of our camera operatives, Hayley Walrus, will have been involved with as well. She also played for Oregon Fugue. But Mud will really are in need of a hold right now. Gets it to Shimada. Shimada goes around to Takaura. Takes the inside shot. And there's that flick, but well picked out, but unfortunately Macked. Good defensive pressure there by Molly. Back to swinging for Mud, and a Mack off one hand, but makes sure with the second. Gets the disc around, and that's Suzuki to Shimada. A bit lucky maybe for Mud, but they took advantage, got that goal at 11-8.
A bit lucky, but you could see that Matt was looking for that breakside flick again. Molly Brown actually, I think, aware of that one, blocking the disc, but also a great second attempt from Mud, keeping the disc alive.
They had two of those little Macks to continue the offense. Here's the second one with with Suzuki tapping it with one and catching with the other. I think Molly Brown will feel a bit unfortunate coming out of that defensive pressure.
Yeah, nice defensive pressure. But you know, if you play such a defense and leave the field, then you don't feel too bad.
True.
So I guess it's not going to put him down that much.
The game here now, 11-8. No breaks for Mud. And 3 for Molly. Maybe 4, sorry, apologies, 4. They'll be up 12-8 with this offensive goal. They are slowly catching on to this breakside throw there. In the last point, we saw them tap it. Bacher fields. Ooh, gets it to Pesh, who bobbles but catches. You cannot underestimate the speed of these Japanese players. Does maintain possession though. Applegate to Minor. Finds Cousins. Quite a deep reset, but gets it to Applegate. She goes around to Ives. Back with Bacher. Bacher surveys the field, takes her time, finds Applegate, who continues to Pesh. Goes down the line, and Mud, running interception. Gets it to Furuzawa. And a bit of patience here will do Mud a lot of good. They get into the middle with Furukawa. Back to Shimada. Shimada definitely wants this breakside throw. She keeps indicating that's what she wants, but Furukawa goes down the line to 15. Another continue into this open side to Shimada.
Again, faking the breakside.
And there's that throw again, that crossfield flick, but this time not into the end zone, just to the other side of the field. Getting low was 21, Furuzawa. Furuzawa points to where she wants it, and the disc goes there. Has no continue, but does have that break. Again, getting low. Shimada fakes and goes inside, and that's a break for Mud with Anna Wakaya with the goal. Now only two down at 9-11.
First break for Matt out of his own defense. Although Molly Brown actually in the first half of the field found the holes in that zone, wasn't quite patient enough. And then Matt, on the other hand, really worked the disc up the field nice, stayed patient in front of the zone, and finally went for the first break.
Yeah, and there we see the Mud team celebrating together. Also noticed that Hannah Leathers is not playing for Molly Brown. She has been injured for some time and played fantastically during the Eurostars tour and yesterday, but maybe just resting for today. And from the Eurostars tour, you've said which city you enjoyed, but which game did you enjoy the most?
I think it was the Brood Squad game, because that was the first game where we kind of put our stuff together and came out strong. Didn't start really well, but that's what keeps happening in a lot of games. And I really enjoyed the atmosphere there as well. Had a great announcer. Crowd was cheering for us as well. And tight finish. Couldn't quite make it all the way, but that was an awesome game.
Yeah, and I guess the slow starts could be attributed to the very tight schedule which we were travelling to, flying almost every other day, which is, whilst not the worst thing, can be quite tiring. Getting to airports, getting on the plane, getting off their plane, getting away from airports. So those slow starts, whilst annoying, had some understanding, I guess. But now back with Molly Brown, fighting through this zone. Eventually finding Lisa P, who's, even though she's slipping, gets the disc to Laurie. Back with Pesh, sorry. Across the field to Chastain, and here comes that containment from the Japanese. Again with Pesh. A nice inside shot there to Chastain. A reset to Elmore. Fakes outside, and it makes the defenders crumble up. And eventually, Minor finds Lizzie Laurie, again using the width of the field to maintain their lead, 12-9.
As you just said, DP, Molly's really using the width of the field, so the zone has to move a lot. They did do quite a good job of containing the end zone, but Molly is adapting to it.
Yeah, and here in the replay, this is the last parts of the possession where they see that Molly Brown have swung the disc all the way to this left-hand side. They tried to come all the way back to the right-hand side, but don't find any options, so attack down the middle momentarily. So you see here, that's where they start attacking down the middle. Lots of little passes. And finally, Chastain pulls in the defender so that she can go wide. And you can see all the other Molly Brown players attack that one side where initially the defense had to crush into the middle because of the way that Chastain had faked. Hence some good stability and ability to move the mark has forced the defense to come in and then opens up some space elsewhere that Chastain and Molly Brown then attack. And I feel like Molly Brown will be pretty happy with the way they did that in that point, considering in the last point they had sort of struggled to connect. And here they already are on their way to try and get another block. Mudd coming out of their end zone. Getting the disc to 64, Suzuki, but a pick has been called. And there we see the Wooftuff hand signal for pick. That's something to note that in Japan they do use the Wooftuff rule set, but here they'll have to be playing in the USA rule set. They're not so dissimilar, but there are some key differences, which I am not so clued up on, and I should be, I guess. But regardless, in this case, Frisbee's Frisbee, and I can probably work out most of them, especially when we have observers. Takahura finds 33. Now back with Suzuki. Suzuki inside, and there's that little dinky shot from the Japanese, moving the disc very well, almost scoring there. Lots of fakes from 21. Eventually goes around, but pick has been called. Furuzawa there, really trying to make the mark of Sarah Taggart move. The disc is coming back in on 6. Again, getting Taggart moving. Goes high and well brought down by Shimada. But there has been a call, which looks like it's a timeout. I see a few people tapping their heads, but both players agreeing that it's not stall out, sorry. Apologies, stall out. Both players agreeing it's not, and so a goal is given. So that's 10-12. If you want to stay up to date with all the action here at the US Open, along with the live streams here provided by Fulcrum Media, you can go to the new US Open Club Championship website, which can be found at usopen.usaultimate.org, with information like teams playing in every division, the schedule, results, daily recaps, and plenty of news articles and updates. And this second half has been a bit more of a flip-flop half, you would argue, with both teams taking some breaks off each other, but Molly Brown maintaining their lead that they fought so hard for in the first half. So when do you head back to Austria, Betty?
I get to stay until the 10th of August. I'm gonna go to Chicago, look
Nice.
at some beautiful buildings.
And back to the beautiful ultimate. Becher against Elmore, and it looks like Mud have gone more of a person defense here.
Switch their defense back to person, yeah.
I think what they're doing actually is they're person on the handlers, but they've got some sort of help defense in the deep areas. So they're also sitting off the reset, hence causing a pick there, but hence making sure that Molly do have to reset and have to swing the disc, which they would rather they do than throwing deep shots. The disc has also been moved though. Most of the field now with Chastain, who comes back in after a pick. Chastain swings to Elmore. And a nice continue down the field to Minor. Minor back to Applegate, sorry. With Chastain, 10 yards out. Chastain has someone free on the far side. Bacher will have to attack it. Inside shot to Pesh. Molly Brown maintaining their lead, up 13-10.
So the variation of defenses Mud's playing has forced Molly Brown to adapt their game. It's not the typical style like we've seen in the first few points, but still defense pressure is not high enough to actually stop them from scoring, and that's why they're still up by 2, right? Up by 2?
3.
3, yeah, excuse me, up by 3.
And here we see Molly Brown preparing their defense. With Pelletier, Mickle, Chen, Johnson, Elmore, who's been fantastic on both ends of the field actually. A couple blocks, and including a bookend. Vlach and McKeever. All these players actually collectively having a fantastic weekend, but actually individually as well. I've having watched now Molly Brown for about 4 games over the last week or so, I've been very impressed about how every single one of these players is really performing well, throwing beautifully, utilizing space, cutting for each other. Very, very selfless play from all players, including some of the bigger names like Chastain and Schaffner and Pitcaithley. And here's this short pull set that we've seen from them a few times over this weekend. Mickle trying to limit the deeper options for Mud by pulling short, which is actually a technique I've seen the Japanese teams do in previous games.
That's true, but as you just said, we've seen Molly Brown doing it yesterday as well, quite a lot of times.
And that has caused Mud to just swing. But this now on the far sideline with Suzuki. Does have an open handler though. Calm, one-handed from Shimada. Goes around. Oh, and takes on the inside shot to Shimada. Almost defended though.
Johnson was looking at the disc but couldn't quite change the direction soon enough to get it.
Yeah, and here we see in the replay. This time Mud's utilizing the whole width of the field. But again, leading the thrower, leading the receiver. And like you say, Betty, Johnson was looking for it. So Mud have a hold. Still down by 2 though, 11-13. And it feels like on the field it's a little flat, you might argue. Both teams like really not taking any risks. And again, I feel that Mud are going to have to win this game.
I think so as well. Let's see what kind of defense they're going to play on this point. As you said, DP, they switched to a kind of junky person-style defense on the last point. Didn't put a lot of pressure on Molly, though.
Yeah, I think, again, like we talked about, and we've talked about throughout the game, they were just trying to stop any early deep shots. Both teams actually on their defensive lines, but both teams have also adapted their offense so that they don't need to necessarily take on big deep shots.
Back on the zone defense now, Matt.
Bacher fakes the scuba. Applegate across to Pesh. Had to continue, but just decided to go with Applegate. There's that inside to Chastain. Chastain fakes the big end zone shot. Back with Applegate. Applegate, something unconventional, but Bacher reads it perfectly, yanks it out of the air. Bacher has to go across the field to Applegate, who picks it up off the field. Not down, so she carries on playing. Bacher tosses one to Chastain. And between those three, Bacher, Chastain, and Applegate, some dominant offense there, up 14-11.
Almost looked like a three-person weave going down the field.
But Bacher did make it hard for Applegate there.
What really makes it hard to stop the Molly Brown offense as well is the fact that they're using each single player out there. As you just said, some big names on the roster, on the team, but still everybody working real hard out there. Makes it hard to cover.
Games here are to 15 as long as the leading team are up by 2, which obviously currently Molly Brown are. So if they are able to score this point or the next, they'll have won the game. And that will put them at 4-0, a 4-0 record and top of the seedings, dependent on the other games in this pool, which are currently going on all around us. Mud will potentially be second in their pool, even with that loss, as they have one more win than some, and potentially a better goal difference, I guess, as well. But Molly Brown will be very happy with their performance. So. She fakes, isn't able to find the break, so has to go across the field and high. Oh, and two defenders very nearby. Pelletier almost got the D. Now out of their end zone with 21. Furuzawa, she goes across the field and well picked up by Suzuki. And this is some tough work here by Mud. Getting out of the half. Now with 77, Shimada. Shimada has a strike down the line, just down for Takaura, but she gets it. Takaura fakes, breaks with Furuzawa, and upfield is very stationary, except for the 1 or 2 handlers. Takes the inside shot into tight space. Wakaya with the goal, and that was a hard point there for Mud.
Hard point, as you said, upfield was very stationary. Handlers really active, moving up the disc up the field. Finally going for the score.
And here we see that final score, and there's that almost throw that's almost dead in front of them, making the player run onto it. And keeping themselves within 2. The score here 14-12.
That's what Mutt keeps doing, having the thrower initiating the pass and the cut, which makes it really hard to defend, especially if it's on the break side, as we've seen in the second half of the game so far.
So,
excuse me, first half. Molly actually did a good job in defending it in the second half.
yeah, we've definitely seen less of it. They've been looking more for those around shots since half, but now Molly will want to just have this hold and win the game out. They won't want to give cough the disc up, and I mean, so far their offense has been fairly efficient with, I think, only 2 or 3 turns in the whole game.
In the whole game, very clean offense, and I guess that's what they're gonna look
And even when they do have those turns, they do get the disc back, so it almost doesn't matter that they had those, but they will want to clean those up for later games. And Chastain taking on a deep shot that's a bit low and bounces off the floor. Chastain won't be happy with that. It was a good option, but just thrown a bit too low. Laurie unable to keep hold of it. And this is one of those times that they have coughed the disc up to Mud. If Mud can take this break, they could totally change the outcome at the end of this game. Tapped in with Furuzawa. Another bid by Chastain. Gets it across the field. So far, only just outside of their end zone, but does go around to Shimada. And Mud so far moved the disc very quickly. Molly Brown having to play catch up. Goes around with Yamek, and a pick has been called. Again, Suzuki and Shimada running this offense for Mud. In the final third, Suzuki fakes you around. Doesn't have an option to go back, but has to go right behind her with Furuzawa. Continues back to Suzuki. Good continuation across the field. There's that inside shot. Oh, and almost defended by two Molly Brown players, and that's a break for Mud. Now up within one, 14-13.
Amazing break by Mud. What a comeback. What a quick offense. Great continuation throws, hardly any stall counts.
And here we see a couple fakes. And that almost lead pass backhand through two Molly Brown defenders.
That's a real hard pass to throw, actually. There's no space for any arrows on that one.
Yeah. And Molly will, I think Molly won't be happy with that turnover, but Mud demonstrating that they can really compete at this level when they're given the disc, ensuring that they get that break. And they weren't doing that earlier, but they've tightened up their offense and adjusted themselves so they're able to take advantage of the turns they do get.
Yeah, Mud's D-line really got their offense organized throughout the game. Couldn't convert all of the chances they had, but making it a tight game at the end.
But Molly are a very tight unit, mentally tough as well, as we saw yesterday in the Brute game. With Brute coming back at them, they were able to close the game out. So here they will take a few breaths, make sure they get this offense point in and the game. Minor going high, continues down the line, but Mud coming under, and that's another turn. And a bit of rushing there from Molly.
Bit of rushing and well defended by Suzuki. She was expecting this long throw.
And
Made sure that the disc went out of bounds.
And now Furuzawa will walk the disc up. Chastain almost bidding on Suzuki. Pesh went a bit too far, so gave that bounce back to Mud. Well covered by 6 Ives there. And now with 6, Ichimasa. Oh, and Applegate almost got a bid there as well. Looking for that round shot is Mud. Gets it eventually to 6. Ichimasa across the field, and a pick has been called. Furukawa on the disc. And Betty and I are almost a bit too scared to say anything. This game.
It's getting really exciting at the end now.
Yeah, swinging in the balance almost. Furukawa fakes what gets it around, and Chastain also almost bidding again. Suzuki goes still, eventually fakes, gets into the middle. Now with Ichimasa, she goes inside. But she wants that break side throw. Now with Takahashi. Takahashi down the line. Oh, And the receiver upfield just stumbling. And Ives is injured.
Injury call, and it seems like there's a foul call as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that on a replay, if we have one. Here's that throw up the line, and you can just see number 6 is down. Can't see the initiating, if there is any initiating contact. But they are discussing it. And a tall fellow has come on the field. And maybe he's a Japanese speaker.
Seems like he's translating. Doesn't seem like an observer.
No, I feel like he might know some Japanese. Talking both to Ives and Ichimasa. I mean, he's a very tall fellow compared to the 2 players on the field. And it seems like it's a contested foul. So the disc will go back to 29. Sugunuma. I'll have to thank that tall fellow later. So the disc back. In on 1. Suganuma knocking on the door here. Wants to go down the line, but no option. Has to go around. Stop Mickle there. Sorry, not Mickle. Laurie stops the continuation, but Chastain was poaching off Suzuki, so opened up that side of the field. Suzuki goes inside. Not quite in. Tosses into the end zone, and another break.
And another break for the tie.
And that's a tie, yeah, like Betty says, that's 14 all. What a game we have here, Betty.
Didn't expect that. By the time Molly went up 14-12, I expected the game to be finished really soon, but Mud putting a lot of pressure on there. Although Molly was able to run the pool play, starting with the side stack. I had the first pass in the middle of the field, but Mud doing a great job of covering the long shot, getting the break back and celebrating right now.
Yeah, they've just been forcing Molly Brown into a timeout, and yeah, I'd be excited if I'd come back from a couple breaks down to bring it to 14s. And we said earlier we couldn't really, you can never discount any team, especially in the game of runs that the ultimate is. And Molly will find themselves in this tricky situation and are forced into overtime.
But like you said, Molly mentally really strong yesterday against Brute Squad. So
yeah, they were in exactly this position yesterday. A game to 17, as I remember. I might be wrong. I will double check the results right now.
Molly finding themselves in the O-line huddle here,
Yeah,
giving each other confidence. Really want to make sure that they stop the momentum of Mutt right now. Otherwise, it's going to be tough to finish this game on a win.
so the time cap has actually just gone on, and we haven't reached 15. So since that's between points, I think we finish this point and add 2, which would make it still a game to 17.
To 17, yeah.
I will double check.
So at least 3 more exciting points.
Yeah, at least.
At least.
Let's find I've got my tournament rules here somewhere. Here we go. Soft cap goes on 20 minutes. Hard cap goes on the end of round of scheduled games over the end of the point of progress, unless tied. If tied, play him 1 point. Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
I'll work it out as we're going through this point. Molly on offense. Chastain centers to Elmore. Now with Laurie. And you can see Mudd marking out the deep a bit better. Pesh has nothing down the line, but Beisha comes under.
Pick called again.
I'm not sure that Beisha was very free I'm not sure that that affected that pick.
This goes back, so defensive player must have been affected.
I'm not so sure about that. I think she wasn't really close. But anyway, Pesh gets it to Applegate. Applegate really wanted that break. Chastain strikes into the open lane. Chastain, and you can see a lot of players faking that around throw, which eventually gets to Becher. Becher, great little inside break to Chastain. She gets across the field to Applegate. Applegate back to Chastain, and the goal for 15-14.
What a point by Chastain. Had her hands on every second disc and finally even managed to score the point.
Yeah, and here we see in the replay that cool, calm and collected offense on the end zone line. So we had reached overtime. So that was a soft cap, right? We just went through with the hooter,
Yep.
which means we add 2 to the highest score after the first score, after soft time cap. Yes. Right. So regardless, it's the game to 17. Game ends when the first team reaches new game total or when the first team reaches 15 or more ahead by at least 2 points, whichever comes first. In this case, Molly are not ahead by 2, so that cannot happen when they've reached 15. But they can reach +2, which is 17.
Just like we assumed it to be.
Perfect. Just means more time on the mic for me and Meti. This production presented to you by Fulcrum Media. Shout outs to Hayley Warroos up on the top 50 angle, and Roberto is our director, doing a great job. And I believe Sergio out on Caesar out on our far angle replay. But back with the action. Mudd. Struggling to get a reset, but eventually they do find it. And there's a deep shot, which we haven't seen from Mudd at all, but Schaffner is underneath it, gets up, taps the disc.
What a defense by Schaffner.
And
Really not happy with the foul con.
yeah, and I'm going to side with Schaffner on this. She got to the disc first, was above the play.
And here comes the tall guy again,
Yeah, he's
helping
loving
with the
it.
translation.
I think he just wants to get on the stream. I think that's what it is. I shouldn't give him any. We should give him no airtime. Look somewhere else, guys. But he is helping the play, so we should at least thank him for that. As Jessie discusses what she did.
Schaffner was well aware of that shot.
And I wouldn't mind seeing a replay as the tall fellow discusses with the players. Okay, no problem. No replay for that game, for that play. And a lot of discussion between these three. And a typical Frisbee chat about how the play went. It seems like another contested foul.
Looks like a contested foul. This goes back.
The disc will come back in. on that far sideline. Elmore on the force. Can't quite see which number. It's 11, I believe. Takaura. They're now discussing where in the stall they'll be coming back in. And it seems like it's 4.
Seems like it's Stalcon 4.
Takaura. Tap back in. Nothing down the line. It does have a reset with Furuzawa. Furuzawa has her first and second option stopped. Has to go back to Takaura. Again, and some great defense here from Molly. Able to stop 1 and 2 options. Forcing them back now with Suzuki. Back to Takaura. Takaura across the field, and the noise on the field rising with the Japanese sideline. Yamaguchi back to Suzuki, to Takaura, sorry. Pick is called. Some confusion about where the disc came from.
The double cut causing the pick here. Both players actually wanted to go for the continuation.
So Takaura does take that continuation. To Furuzawa down the line. Fakes. Gets it back in the middle. She wants that around, but can only have for Takaura, who's just in the way. Fakes. And you can see Mudder getting tired, almost putting it near to 21. Furuzawa. Again around for Takaura. A great continuation around the mark. Got some tight defense upfield, stops anything else. And there's that inside shot to keep it level at 15. And you saw some frustration there from Jessie Schaffner. I feel like she really did get that defensive block.
I think so as well. She was playing the disc before the contact happened. For sure had a good position. But Matt, on the other hand, again, using the inside shot for the score. Stayed patient all the way through.
You'd argue some very good pressure applied by Molly Brown, though. Really forcing Mud to take many more shots than they have previously.
That's true. Mutt really had to work for that offense. Almost turned it.
But Mud still trading in terms of the way we're trading. Molly will always score first on offense. The other field behind us. Sorry, you go.
Schaffner there sitting on the sideline.
Probably just going over that last point a little bit before she comes back out on defense for the last point. For the next point, sorry. She'll want to really punctuate this game and finish off strong. The other game behind us, the Uno Scandal game, has finished already. But we'll continue showing you this exciting matchup between Mud and Molly Brown. Molly Brown receiving. Pesh. Centre to Chastain. Chastain finds Minor. Good continuation to Lizzie Laurie. Back to Chastain. Another great inside to Minor from Chastain. And another great continuation to Laurie. Again with Chastain. Finds the corner with Applegate. And that's the quality we expect from Molly Brown. Up 16-15.
What a point. Great continuation. Great use of both sides of the field. No chance for the defense on that point.
And it's all about Laurie, Chastain, and Minor. And only at the last point did Applegate touch it. But did so in the end zone for the goal.
And it seems like that's game already. So DP,
we
we got that
I was
wrong.
wrong. But that is now game at 16-15. I believe that's because the time cap went before we reached 15s. My apologies. And what a game we've had here, Betty. Can you talk us through it all?
Molly Brown started off really well with a strong offense. It seemed like Mud had no chance to get a D. But finally, with the variation of their defense, they started some zone, adapted the zone, finally got one break. And then in the second half, Mud really came out strong. Tied it at 14-14, I guess. That was it. And Molly seemed to be struggling at the end, but the last point just showed again. I mean, they got their mindset back and just walked it through with an incredible point at the end.
Yeah, and after 98 minutes of play, Molly Brown coming out on top with a 4-0 record, top of their pool as well. Great game. I'd like to thank Betty for her debut as a commentator. We'll be seeing her again shortly in another game between Revolution and Showdown. I've been David Price.
I've been Betty Schneidl.
See you later, guys.
Every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go! Take down the trail!
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.